13. Only if. The word if frequently appears in combination with other words, the most common being even and only, which give rise to the expressions even if, only if. The expression even if is very complex, and somewhat beyond the scope of intro logic, so we do not consider it any further. So, let us turn to the other expression, only if, which involves its own subtleties, but subtleties that can be dealt with in intro logic. First, we note that only if is definitely not equivalent to if. Consider the following statements involving only if. O1 I will get an A in logic only if I take all the exams. O2 I will get into law school only if I take the LSAT. Now consider the corresponding statements obtained by replacing only if by if. I1 I will get an A in logic if I take all the exams. I2 I will get into law school if I take the LSAT. Whereas the only if statements are true, the corresponding if statements are false. It follows that only if is not equivalent to if. The above considerations show that an only if statement does not imply the corresponding if statement. One can also produce examples of if statements that do not imply the corresponding only if statements. Consider the following examples. I3 I will pass logic if I score 100 on every exam. I4 I am guilty of a felony if I murder someone. O3 I will pass logic only if I score 100 on every exam. O4 I am guilty of a felony only if I murder someone. Whereas both if statements are true, both only if statements are false. Thus, A if B does not imply A only if B, and A only if B does not imply A if B. So how do we paraphrase only if statements using the standard connectives? The answer is fairly straightforward, being related to the general way in which the word only operates in English as a special dual negative modifier. As an example of only in ordinary discourse, a sign that reads employees only means to exclude anyone who is not an employee. Also, if I say J loves only K, I mean that he does not love anyone except K. In the case of the connective only if, only modifies if by introducing two negations. In particular, the statement A only if B is paraphrased not A if not B. In other words, the if stays put, and in particular continues to introduce the antecedent, but the only becomes two negations, one in front of the antecedent introduced by if, the other in front of the consequent. With this in mind, let us go back to original examples, and paraphrase them in accordance with this principle. In each case, we use a colloquial form of negation. P1 I will not get an A in logic if I do not take all the exams. P2 I will not get into law school if I do not take the LSAT. Now, P1 and P2 are not in standard form, the problem being the relative position of antecedent and consequent. Recalling that A if B is an idiomatic variant of if B, then A, we further paraphrase P1 and P2 as follows. P1 if I do not take all the exams, then I will not get an A in logic. P2 if I do not take the LSAT, then I will not get into law school. These are symbolized, respectively, as follows. S1 TA S2 TL. Combining the paraphrases of only if and if, we obtain the following principle. Only if B is paraphrased not A if not B, which is further paraphrased if not B, then not A, which is symbolized BA,